Well, the title really does say it all. We're facing a gathering storm. But that's both for us to know as a reality and for us to get ready for, to be ready to face this challenge. Christians in this generation are called to a unique challenge in this time of late modernity, in this time of 21st century challenge, in a context of secularization and even political and moral hostility to the Christian church. If we're going to be ready for the storm, we've got to see it coming. We've got to understand what it is. And I believe the Christian church is up to that. I've written this book, at least in hope that it will help Christians to be ready. Any book comes out of a context of basic obsession on the part of the author. And so I'll admit, every single day I deal with the issues that I see now swirling about in the clouds of this gathering storm. And it seemed to me to be a matter of responsibility to pull these together because they share a common theme. They're all a part of this great cultural challenge that we are now facing. And so I wrote The Gathering Storm precisely because I want the church to understand the gospel, the church, the context of a secularizing society, and the challenges that this will present to us, and even more so to our children. So I wrote the book out of a sense of urgency, but then again, I guess the title rather effectively implies that. When you read the book, I hope that you'll be informed, and because of the book, more thoughtful than perhaps might have been otherwise when you think about some of the challenges that are facing us. I hope that readers of the book will have a greater understanding of some of the moral issues swirling about us, the use of language, the impact of law, the pervasive effects that a secularizing process has on the society around us, and then provides to all of us as an urgent challenge. So I wrote the book to inform, to serve as a catalyst for thought, to help to explain some of what's going on around us, and to encourage the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ. Because there's no point in writing a book about a gathering storm if the final message is just resign to the storm. That's not the message of the book. But understanding the storm is the first task in getting ready to face it. Throughout my adult life, and even as I was a teenager, one of my great heroes to whom I looked for inspiration was Winston Churchill, the greatest statesman, I believe, of the 20th century. And it was Churchill who, during the period especially of the 1930s, in those early years, saw the threat of Nazi Germany, saw Germany remilitarizing, paid attention to the speeches of Adolf Hitler, watched what was happening in the demise of democracy there and in the rise of dictatorship, and declared and presented to the British people and to the British government, even when they would not hear it. And of course, later, Churchill was horrifyingly vindicated by the truth. And the reality was that Britain found itself at war, and eventually so did the United States. And what we know as World War II occurred in the way that it did, in what can only be described as a far more horrifying way, by the fact that Britain, most particularly in Churchill's concern, had not readied itself for the war and hadn't been honest about the storm that was gathering. So when he, in retrospect, after the war, wrote his great 6-volume history of the Second World War, he entitled that first volume, The Gathering Storm. And I have, without embarrassment and with honor and attribution, credited that to Winston Churchill and borrowed the title from him. I think in our own time, we see our own gathering storm, the gathering storm of our times. That's why I titled the book with that title. And I can only hope that there's time for the Christian church in our generation to understand and step up to this challenge, see it for what it is. Writing a book is like having a conversation, and you need to have in mind as an author the audience for that conversation. With whom are you having this conversation? And I think with the gathering storm of 3 or 4 conversations that I was trying to have throughout the book. The first is just with Christians seeking to be intelligent and thoughtful about the world around us, recognizing that the stakes are higher than previous generations may have understood. We're living at a time of cultural complexity and cultural challenge. What in the world is going on? I hope to help Christians who read this book to think about what is going on and understand it in a whole new way. Maybe connect the dots and begin to see the patterns. Then I had a specific audience of those who are Christian leaders, because those leaders bear, by definition, an even higher responsibility and have concern not only with themselves and with their families, but also with congregations and organizations and those they're influencing. So they were very much on my mind. And then a third conversation is with college students and those who are on the campuses where these battles are being fought out, those who are in need of intellectual ammunition day by day and hour by hour. And so it was written into that conversation and in order to help those, especially who are college students. And then beyond that, I really hope that Christian churches and Christian families will be encouraged by the book to think through these issues. Some of these conversations need to be had with middle schoolers and especially with high schoolers. And that's where parents and churches should be on the front line, as well as other Christian educators, but parents and churches especially on the front lines of thinking about how do we talk about these issues, and how do I help middle schoolers and high schoolers to think through these issues. So I wrote the book with those conversations in mind, and I will also tell you that the book was written as I was in actual conversations with all those different kinds of people. And a book is not only just a finished product; it is, if it's done right, an ongoing conversation. Well, if readers can only take home, so to speak, one thing from the book, it would be that we're facing a tremendous, daunting cultural challenge. The title itself, The Gathering Storm, implies the scale of that challenge. A storm is something you've got to deal with honestly and face courageously. But I would never want the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ, I wouldn't want Christians to think about the gathering storm without understanding, first of all, that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus Christ is Lord. So, yes, we're facing a storm. The church is, in one sense, always called to face a storm. We need to understand what this storm is in this generation and how it's shaping the culture before us. But we do so under the lordship of Jesus Christ. And so we do so in a storm, but safe. And we need to think about how to stay safe in the storm.